Insira a sua carga. E aí o cargo vai calcular como carregá-la eficazmente. É possível explorar o carregamento facilmente e ajustá-lo manualmente. Além disso, pode ver o peso por eixo.
Olá, bom dia a todos. Seja bem-vindo a mais um FATEC Log, nosso 12º FATEC Log. Ótima manhã a todos. Espero que tenham dormido bem. Espero que tenham gostado das apresentações que nós fizemos, dos trabalhos apresentados, de todas as palestras que realizamos no dia de ontem. E hoje não poderíamos deixar de iniciar melhor, não poderíamos deixar de começar esta manhã de sábado com um painel de debates melhor, um painel de debates internacional, o primeiro painel de debates internacional que teremos no evento FATEC Log, e aqui na sua 12ª edição, um painel de debates internacional, contando com 3 grandes especialistas na área do agronegócio. Vou apresentar rapidamente esses 3 grandes especialistas. Lembro que este painel será realizado em inglês. Qualquer dúvida, estou aqui à disposição para responder as perguntas, para fazer os questionamentos, tá? E tem muitas pessoas aqui já dando bom dia, professor Robson Santos, professor Fernando Mussouça, Maria Luísa Ribeiro, professor Oswaldo Contador Júnior, Buga, Maiellaro Pullman do CPS, do mestrado, Marcos Leandro, FATEC Zona Sul, Nelson Correia, nosso grande amigo, FATEC Americana, Abel Batista, Wagner dos Santos. Então vamos lá. Professor Milton Brito, Luiz Alvarenga, todos grandes amigos aí. Então, para iniciar este debate, eu vou aqui apresentar professor doutor João Gilberto, professor doutor João Gilberto, ele é, João Reis, né? Ele é doutor em Engenharia de Produção pela Universidade Paulista, mestre em Engenharia de Produção também pela Universidade Paulista, e o mais legal, ele é um ex-fatecano, FATEC Zona Leste. Ele é formado em tecnólogo em logística com ênfase em transporte, gestão da cadeia de suprimentos e logística da FATEC Zona Leste. Seja bem-vindo, professor. Agora, apresentar professor doutor João Roberto Maiellaro. Professor doutor João Roberto Maiellaro, ele é doutor em Engenharia de Produção pela Universidade Paulista, mestre em Engenharia de Produção pela Universidade Metodista de Piracicaba, especialista em Engenharia de Produção pela Escola Politécnica da USP e especialista em Gestão de Produção pela Universidade São Judas Tadeu, além de ser nosso professor aí, grande amigo. PhD Laura Palacios. Laura Palacios, ela vem representando a École des Mines de Saint-Étienne, vem apresentando, ela é PhD em Engenharia Industrial, ela atua como pesquisadora de pós-doutorado também, entre outros pontos. Então, seja bem-vindo a todos. Passo a palavra ao professor doutor João Reis, que vai conduzir este debate com maestria e excelência.
Obrigado, Mike. Bom dia a todos. Então, como o professor Mike falou, a gente vai fazer uma transição linguística nesse exato momento e vamos passar a tratar o painel em inglês. So, good morning for all. Thank you to be here this morning to watch this panel. I have the pleasure to mediate this panel for you today. So we will have interesting thoughts about challenging advances in food supply chains. I hope you enjoy this moment and could share with you some thoughts, some ideas that you help us discuss a little bit about this important topic. So in this panel, we have 3 presentations before the debate. Let me see if I can change the screen here. Yes, exactly. You have 3 presentations. As Professor Mike mentioned, I have the pleasure to mediate this debate. So I will make a short presentation about food supply chains. I'd like to show you some ideas to put you in the general context of food supply chains, and try to express a little bit about the impacts of COVID-19 that are living in your lives right now in food supply chains. So after I have a honor to receive Professor João Maiellaro, my former PhD student. He has a brilliant work in food supply chains related to eco-feeding. He will present an interesting case for you today about Mogi Cruz City, all the work he conducted there. So after my friend, Laura Palacios, is here directly from Germany, but is a close neighbor for us here because she's from Colombia. Sometimes he says that we have more connections with Argentina or Uruguay or Paraguay because they're here, but I believe that we share more experience and more things with Colombia about the life, the people, the way the people react to things, so to see things. And there are some close connections. So you have an interesting debate today because you can connect the ideas about Europe. You present some cases from France, and you have the case of Brazil. At the same time, you share the same knowledge about the Latin America. So it's an interesting debate because you enter in different aspects of our thematic today. And finally, you have a chance for make a debate. Okay, thank you so much, João. Thank you so much, Laura, to be here for me today to conduct this debate. I hope you enjoy your participation here. We are very honored to have you here today. So, as Professor Michael mentioned, this is my profile. I'm a professor postgraduate program engineer, professor in Paulista University. Most part of the time I work over there. But I collaborate in postgraduate program in agribusiness in Universidade Federal of Grande Dourados in Central Region of Brazil. Very recently, I gave some classes in FATEC Ferraz as well. I was involved with Centro Palacios for all my life. As he mentioned, I'm in technology and logistics. I was very proud about that. And more than that, I'm very proud to have helped in some ways some teachers and some students from FATEC obtain his master's, his doctorate degree in some ways. For me, it's really honored and really involved with Centro Palacios for all my life. So my investigation interesting areas right now is logistics supply chains, some predictive methods, and mobility. We have a group of research on that, research group in food supply chains, not food supply chains in general. So you can see all of our work over there. Just some ideas. I don't want to waste a lot of time on that. So going to directly for my topic today, I would like to share with you some ideas about the food supply chains. During these days, you see some ideas about the importance of the agro. In Brazil, we are discussing, or there's some kind of campaign they're receiving here, so explaining a little bit the agro is pop, the agro is important for the country. Today, I'd like to raise some questions about food supply chains, some food for thought for you. That, okay, there's some kind of glamour, there's some kind of ideas, but how we are connected of your food supply chains, how the humanity in some ways are connected to idea of food supply chains, how your children are involved in food supply chains. This is the point I'd like to share with you during my time with you here. So, to the subject, our big question is how to feed a growing population over the world, yet at the same time without depleting natural resources. There are huge debate in Brazil right now if you need to preserve forestry or deforestation, it's okay, or the agriculture need to expand for those areas, how to deal with this. So it does for kind the justification that you mentioned, that we mentioned that, okay, you need to feed the world, it's important feeding the world, but how we can do that, but at the same time preserve your planet, because you need to live here. You can go for Mars or any kind of place, you need to live here. So UN provides us a thought-provoking idea or maybe a concern, because in 2050, perhaps you have more than 9.4 billion. There are some kind of predictions that mention maybe 11 billion people. If you consider that we surpassed 7 billion right now, is so much people, and how you can deal with food for everyone. This is the main question. If you think about 30 years, there is an blink in the eye, okay? Just very fast, you go into the disparity, how the agriculture, how the food supply chains needed to evolve to attend this population. These are our concern. When you think this kind of concern, you need to think where the people are, where I can find the population. China, India is the brightest places. They have a lot of people over there. But you can see in the numbers, in the figures, Brazil is 3%. You have a part important of the world. There are many countries that contribute on that. But you need to consider all the population and how to attend this population if the properly quantity or the proper amount of food. In this sense, you have two different chains or two different mindsets, to be more clear. Some people say the production is sufficient, okay, you have food for everyone, and it's not a concern, you can increase that. And there's some others that think that is not enough, you need to increase, they need to hump up this production, you need to increase our production here. So let's see these in these two different perspectives. The first one, okay, if I consider that 1/3 of all food produced globally go to the waste, to the garbage, okay, you have enough food. So it's not necessary to increase the area for plantations, not necessary to change everything. You just needed to take care about our logistic process, of the supply chains, or the storage, everything, and try to deal with education from people. But if it's really true, I would like to provoke you food for thought right now. Why does half of the world population go hungry every day, or have a one meal per day? Because why? Not because, but why you need to see things like this. Don't try to ignore things like this. When you see a refugee without food, but not only a refugee, but in your cities, in São Paulo, many places, you have children without food. So this is some kind of concern that you need to have right now. Okay, you need to offer, because you need to grow economically, you need to be a big nation on that. All the countries are thinking this direction, but you need to consider that people live in starvation in many places of the world, right? So these are kind of concern of food supply chains. What the numbers say to us? If you consider all the crops, all the agriculture over the world, you have 4,600 kilocalories per person per day. 2,000 is available directly for you. Okay, you have an access. I understand it's something like gross domestic product. It says gross domestic product per capita is one number. You don't have this number, but if you consider general is the idea. So 600 kilocalories lose at the harvest, okay? So in the plantations, etc. 1,800, it's related to logistics. I believe sometimes it's more than that, but 1,800, it's go waste or lost due to logistic process. 1,200 to go to fixed stock for animals, produce meat, and go back for us again. So this is the production that you have right now over the world. So what's the problem is you need to consider that. So if you consider Europe or North America, Oceania, Australasia, the main issue is in the head part. The head part means their consumption, because the products go to the shelves and sometimes go to the bakeries, go to the places. They don't consume that and go to the waste. You put in the garbage can. When you consider countries like ours, like Latin America area, South and Southeast Asia, you have more impact in agriculture because we don't have proper storage areas, you don't have the right kind of vehicle for transportation, you needed to travel for long distance, you don't have difficulties of infrastructure in roads, etc. So the main problem is related mainly to logistics when you consider distributions. It's something about the processing. There are interesting ideas you can discuss in another moment. So when you think about the production, we produce a lot over the world. You can see here maize, corn, and sugar, wheat, rice. You have a lot of production. The interesting part of this production go for exportation. So if you think about the role of logistics and exportations, just take a look in this picture I show you right now. It's the number of ships just moving soybean from Brazil for other countries before the pandemic. After the pandemic, this number increased. It's awesome for the country. It's interesting for the producers. For the consumers, there are some quite questions mark, because sometimes when I need to go to the supermarket, it pay double or the triple for a bottle of the soybean oil to make my fries in my home. I can understand that. But this is related to globalized world. It has kind of relations you can see here, right here, when you're thinking about transportation. It's very cheap. Make the transportation by being from Brazil for Asia or for Europe is the reason why this keeps flowing every day. So I'd like to just some ideas, some ideas related to the impact of the COVID. Some ideas from FAO, from UN. It's very interesting. While everyone have access to food, you need to think in ways to protect the most vulnerable, mainly children, because children don't decide to born sometimes. They are here. It's very sad to see children going to die because they don't have access to food or living in conditions like this. It's not something far from us. It's something in Brazil, in any countries in Latin America, but you can see some situations in Europe. It's not just that. So how we can protect or offer the food supply chains for this kind of people in some ways. So one other aspect is the restrictions of people access to sufficient diversities of nutritional source food. How you have here in Brazil, I hate to debate over the political positions, etc. I could show the provocation here when I show the border in Venezuela. Before someone complaining about, I just want to say that these blocks that you have, or the refugees camps that you have in Brazil for Venezuelans here, or in Europe with people going from Middle Eastern or like that, it's a global problem. It's what I would like to say is, children don't ask about the political systems or the ideology or something like that. The people is here, you need to tackle independently. You have one idea, one other idea. And when you block the access, sometimes you increase this difficult people have to access food. This food for thought, not a provocation here. So when you consider right now, this moment, the most part of the problem is not to have access to food in many countries, but have enough money to buy this food. You see the prices skyrockets right now, go to the high prices, and people don't have income to buy it. There's some discussion saying, okay, you need to use a fall of social distance or a fall related to lockdowns, but it's necessary. The fact that the cities that decide to open just create a new variants from the COVID-19. But you need to deal with this problem, because the problem many people in the communities, or many people that need for the informal jobs to obtain the money. And right now, you have this problem to deal with. You can find who is the fault for that, but you need to tackle this issue. In many countries, not only Brazil, are facing that. Even the US, 46 million people don't have access to food properly. So this problem we've seen even in rich countries. But when you think about the logistics, we can proud of that, because logistics don't stop. Logistics maintain the supply chains running. It's not a problem. You can see even in Brazil, I don't know, in Europe, or maybe in some moments you have some impact, but the logistics was so resilient and back to the farm, back to put the products in the shelves. If I go to supermarket, my problem is not to find the item, but the problem is to have enough money to buy the item. So logistics, in some ways, maintain the world working, even with the pandemic. This is an interesting point for us here. So obviously, you can waiting for some restriction for some kind of food. But even in the agriculture, you see many of the fruits keep selling. There's some moments you discuss about the security, the safety protocols, but you are receiving that. But this, for some places, you have some difficulty finding some items. And finally, regarding this aspect of the pandemic, you can see the logistic supplies in disruptions, because in Brazil, it depends for the fertilizers going for the Norway or from Russia, sometimes produced. And because the problems that you have right now about exchange rate, any kind of related to our currency right now, this kind of items increase the price. Perhaps you have some difficulty in our agriculture for the next period. Right now, it's okay, everything is good because they're selling a lot, but in the future, things can change due to that. In some ways, can affect people, not only Brazil, but outside of it. So, and the aspect of the restaurants, in case of fisheries, in case of small producers in agriculture, family farms, some kind of is impacted because restaurants are closed for lockdowns, etc. And when they shut down, you have problems to sell your products. Is some kind of impacted. In these small ones, happens, and isn't the reason they don't have enough money to buy food or things like that. So, some concern that you have. So, to finish my presentation, I'd like to show just 2 slides. First one is about malnutrition, because the topic, in some ways, are related to our presentation today. The actions that you showed have a reason to avoid this aspect of malnutrition. In one way of to avoid malnutrition for the countries and tackle this problem right now. Malnutrition affects our childhood, and if children grow without the proper quantity of food or eating in bad habits, because not all without food, if you eat in not a proper way, you have some health problems. It affects all your life during the adulthood. It is the reason that the governments are so concerned about tackling the malnutrition. So we need to consider that children is dying because they don't have access to food as well. So when you think that 50,000 children die every year because they don't have access to food, it's not a problem for the developed ones. Is more concerned that. But in Brazil, even right now, there's some children that today you die because they don't have access to food. So these make actions like school feeding so important. This is the reason of the debate today, and show the impact of school feeding and the actions that the logistics can to help provide school feeding. Right now, when the schools needed to shut down during the pandemic, we are facing this issue because children don't have access, because the parents of school have access to right quantity of food and balanced meal. It's so important in this phase of your life. So several countries are adopted that. Brazil has an important program onto that. João will talk a little bit about that. In many authors related that, many research are made on that to show the importance to school feeding. Okay, school feeding, it's a way, one way to tackle the issue, to propose a solution. We are not saying here that it's the only solution that you have. You need to use these ideas from this debate today to propose ways to tackle this problem that was increased by the pandemic of COVID-19. So I would like to thank you. The ideas that I would like to provoke to you today. We have a book. In the book, you have a chapter. Me, João, Laura participate of this book. It's a book about food supply chain cities. There's some interesting thoughts, not only about school feeding, but about other topics. So it's nice if you have a chance to see or to read it. So, Mike, you can call Professor João Maiellaro right now.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Thank you por compartilhar esse conhecimento muito interessante conosco. João Maiellaro, por favor.
Ok.
João, a sua apresentação não está aqui. Pode compartilhar, por gentileza, conosco?
Chegou, Mike?
Está a caminho, professor, ainda não chegou, não. Está pegando a estrada. Enquanto o professor João está subindo a apresentação, vamos colocar aqui os mais diversos comentários. Professora Luci Bonini, nossa parceira, dando bom dia a todos. Rafael Moura agradecendo, gostou bastante aqui da apresentação. Bia Marques, bom dia, Fatec Mogi das Cruzes, presente. Marcando presença aqui. Vivian Lemes, ótima apresentação, parabéns. Andresa Serra, ótima apresentação também, parabéns a todos. Giovana Lissa, bom dia, da Fatec Guarulhos. E agora sim, vamos lá, a apresentação do professor doutor João Roberto Maiellaro. Muito bem, professor, vamos lá? Perfeito.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. This cold morning. It's very cold. But I'm very happy to talk to our students, our colleagues. I want to greet the members of this panel, João, my friend, my mentor, Laura. Thank you for being here. And congratulations for the logistics committee for the 12 years of this conference. It's a really hard work. And really, congratulations, 12 times FATEC-Log, 12 years. It's a huge conference, so congrats for everyone. Okay, so we bring some information from a research that we did 2 years ago. We studied the food supply chain of the National School Feeding Program here in Brazil, in Mogi das Cruzes. It's so-called PNAE, Programa Nacional de Alimentação Escolar. Okay, so that's my profile, my research interests. Okay, so we did this research in 2019. We finished this research. We found some matters, like, for example, the expensive distribution of the food bought from the family farmers, from family farmers' properties to schools. Okay, so I remember everybody said the distribution, the transportation was really expensive. Everybody, so schools, the farmers, the local government, except the shipping company, of course. The shipping company said, "Oh, it's very cheap. We are very competitive." So it's a huge problem because the funds are very limited. The need for qualification and support to the family farmers. The farmers, normally, we can say that they are unhappy with the program because the quantities, the prices, the general conditions, the lack of support. So it's another matter. it was difficult to increase the economies of scale of the program. So the farmers think that it could be bigger, the quantities. It could be more. It's difficult to include new items of food. It's a very crazy thing because we are in Mogi das Cruzes. It's a very important food producer city in Brazil, and so it's very difficult to get a deeper understanding of the food supply chain of the program. So the aim of the research was to analyze the logistics of the food supply chain in Mogi das Cruzes of the PNAE. Okay, so we looked at a lot of school feeding programs and good initiatives around the world. Really a lot of interest and discussion about this. So on the left, you see the map of Ghana, for example. In the green districts are attended by the school feeding program. So it's a really, really nice, really interesting school feeding program, fully based on homegrown school feeding, in family farming. So another initiatives like the Partnership for Child Development, the World Food Program. So that's we can say a hot topic. So a lot of concern about this topic, the school feeding program, and the impacts in the social matter and economic matter. So it's a really important point. So we did a lot of analysis. We started this research with spatial analysis in a geographic information system. So I remember that we did a lot of maps, and you can see on the left in this image, this photo, you can see the properties of the family farmers that are active in the PNAE in Mogi das Cruzes. You can see small properties, okay, very small properties. They are 58 family farmers that supply some type of food to the program. And here we have the city map of Mogi das Cruzes. So you see on the left, we compared two different cross docking points. If you see on the maps, the red dots are the schools. We have a total of 209 schools attended by the program in Mogi das Cruzes. So above we have the current cross-docking point, and above we have a proposal that we have made 2 years ago. We made a buffer analysis. You see, if you see a very small green dot on the maps, very really small. It's a real scale of this image of the properties, the properties of the family farmers. Okay, so here in another map on the right, we have a hotspot map with the school's concentration. So we did a lot of studies to trying to decrease the distance traveled in the operation, the logistics operation, to attend the schools. Okay. We applied the social network analysis. So we did a lot of nets as well, studying the food flow from the properties, from the family farming to the schools. So many kinds of analysis we did. So for example, this one of the nets that we did. We got a lot of interesting findings with this analysis. For example, you can see here 3 different groups in this net in terms of consumption of food types. So if you see the green dots here, the green dots are the food types, and the blue dots are the schools. So you can see 3 different groups in terms of consumptions. So for example, this group of schools on the left, they consume zucchini and chayote, but they don't consume cabbage, grass, and cauliflowers, for example. So we did a lot of nets, we did a lot of analysis, really interesting findings with this analysis. So, for example, zucchini is the less consumed item. So it seems that we don't have a standard menu that could raise the economies of scale. So another interesting issue is Savoy lettuce and chard. The producer of these items possibly can have a great power or greater influence. So it's not a positive point, because it can hit the balance of the relations between the farmers and the local government. So the nets show it that some things like this. Okay. Another method that we apply this analytic hierarchy process, the HP. You can see here the decision tree and a lot of criteria and sub-criteria that we considered. You see the criteria that we consider. For example, the schools, inbound logistics, family farmers, cooperatives, outbound logistics, the local government, the school feeding department of Mogi das Cruzes, and the sub-criteria here, the handling, the orders, the demand management, the storage in schools, demand forecasters, and so on. Okay, so here on the left, you see me talking to the family farmers, explaining how to respond the questions of the technique, the questionnaire. And here you see the school feeding teams that responded the method as well. So we could talk to everyone, every actor. We talked to farmers, to schools, to local government, to drivers, we talked to the shipping company. So everyone collaborated with this technique. And some findings, for example, we conclude that outbound logistics and family farmers are the main factors that impact on the program. And a new cross-docking point and improving the logistics operation as a whole are the main alternatives to improve the food supply chain of the program. Okay, so another techniques, we studied the routes and we use a simulation model. So here you can see 2 maps. On the left, you see the first scenario when the distribution had 8 routes, and you see the different colors. The dots are the schools, and the colors are the schools visited by each route. So you can see on the left 8 colors, and you see the colors are really scrambled. You see, so we have proposed 6 we called better clustered routes. You see, not scrambled anymore, more clustered, more sectored. So and we put we create a simulation model in Arenas simulator and run a lot of experiments, a lot of parameters. We tested a lot of things, different things. We changed the schools in each route, the number of schools, the number of trucks. So a really huge work, and we have we have here some findings, very interesting findings. We reduced, for example, the total time travel in almost 4 hours and the distance by about 40 kilometers. Okay, so it's a really interesting research that we did, and some conclusions here. The relevance of the family farmers to improve the quality of meals in schools, to improve the program. They are we can say, the focal point of the program. The local food production and school feeding can be really integrated, bringing advantages for the local economy and for education system as a whole. And so we identified many opportunities for improvements in the food supply chain. We really identified many opportunities. So it's really important to research these issues, to research these points of the school feedings programs here in Brazil and all over the world. Okay, so that's my contact, and I finished my short presentation.
Okay, congratulations. Okay. Very, very, very good. And now, Miss PhD Laura Palacios. Hi, Laura. Morning.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. One moment. German, from Germany, yes? Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Laura? Okay, let's go.
Yes. So thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to participate. I'm very happy in the FATELOG event. Today I will talk about characterization and assessment of food distribution scheme through food hubs as a case of study in the school canteen system in France. This work has been developed at the École des Mines de Saint-Étienne in France, that has been financed by the French National Research Agency and the Laboratoire of the University of Lyon. And before to start, I would like to acknowledge the people involved in this work, Dr. Jesus González Feliu, Ivan Sánchez Díaz, Natasha Gondurán, and Andres Regal, that has been part of this project. For this presentation, I would like to start with the context and the background, then I will explain the methodology that we used, I will show some results, and finally I will describe the conclusions and further research. So because of the increasing of population, better flight information systems and transportation systems and more food are required. But one of the most important challenges is to feed the city in a sustainable way, considering issues such as transportation nuisance, congestion, the non-respect of the food quality requirements, among others. This need to look for alternative to feed the city in a sustainable way has become very evident in France, in the French press, as I will show you now, with regard to the institutional catering, so the school canteens, where there is talk about the need of consume local products. So we will see here the advantage of short circuits or direct distribution from the field to the plate. The importance of understanding the sourcing of local products is not just so much problem of demand or the problem of the supply, but to understand if the producer has the capacity or not. The objective that by 2022, the menu of the school restaurants should be made up of at least 50% of organic products. This is very, very huge in this context in France. And the 70% of the French public purchasers demand local for local food demands for the school canteens. So to give you an idea, restaurants represent around 1.2 billion of meals per year in France. So here we are talking an important volume, and this reveals that the sourcing of local and organic products through direct distribution is becoming a trend in the French public policy. So keep in mind this picture. The question here for the municipality is, what should happen to have organic and local products on the menu? But moreover, which are very interesting for us from the academy, is what are the logistical implications of having organic and local products on the menu? So for this, we addressed the literature review to understand what works have been related to the urban transportation, for instance. So we talk about sustainable food policies, logistics solutions for food distribution, but aiming to accomplish sustainable goals, speaking about short supply chain regarding the economical benefits, green supply chain regarding the environmental impacts reduction, the fair supply chain configuration, where it's about the social externalities care. So this, considering the change in product demand, focusing on eco-responsible products such as local and organic products, and also to take in consideration the relationship between the stakeholders. It's very different what we see when we analyze supply chains, business to consumer, business to business, or in a relationship business to consumer. So the main objective, we will talk about the research question here. So is how eco-responsible demand requirements impact the food supply and the distribution configuration. So I will show you how we have some analysis to respond to this research question. So for the methodology, we propose a 3-step framework. The first step is this food supply system characterization, where through primary and secondary data collation and analysis, the supply chain is characterized. So that is the first step. Then we will talk about the demand estimation related to the product demand, and the supply estimation related to product supply, but considering the schemes that are developed in this reality and the vehicle data that we have. Then we will talk about a second step, the scenario construction, where we will take in consideration the distribution decisions that has been considered. So we are interested in particular in the distribution network design configuration, mainly in terms of facility location and allocation. And we will talk about the transportation planning related to the roads construction. So once we have the food system characterization, the scenario construction, we will finally talk about the scenario assessment. So we propose 2 kinds of assessment. The first one related to the efficiency assessment in terms of distance and time, and the other one related to the impact assessment related to economic and environmental impacts. This methodology, of course, has primary and secondary data related to literature review, and we use case study to illustrate how this framework could work. We use also semi-structured interviews and surveys. And I will show you some of the actors involved in this project. The French agri-industrial companies such as Compass, Passion Froid, stakeholders of the institutional catering such as Grand Lyon, Saint-Etienne, and Elior as a private company. Regional food platforms that we will call food hubs in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region. Among others, we have Ardave, BioApro, Auvergne Bio Distribution, and other school canteen systems that we will talk in the conclusions. So let me show you the results for the framework. So the first step, food system characterization. Just take in mind that the institutional catering is the provision of meals to a community of regular consumers bound by agreement of contract. So this means that we have usually the same actors. Here we will find the producers, the transformers, the caterers, or where the food is cooked and processed, such as central kitchens. We will have the municipality customer, the consumers, and of course the couriers. So here are the main stakeholders of the institutional catering in France. But before I mention what is a food hub, we define it from the literature review and from other studies that a food hub is a collaboration system between a producer, distributor, and consumer to strengthen the supply of agro-industrial products by shortening the supply chain. So in France, these food hubs have been created specifically to have a robust offer from the institutional catering market as an alternative to solve these functions in the aggregation and distribution of local raw food. So here you can see the producers that pass through a food hub, and here the institutional catering demand. Let me show you some of the characteristics of these food hubs in France. Over 90% of products that they work are organic. They also have a relationship with over 70% of institutional caterer actors. Regarding the structure, they usually are owned by producers. They are non-profit organizations, and some of those are private owned. Regarding the functions, we have all commercial, all type of definition of price, for example, mark, among others. And also we have all the logistic functions, such as coordination of the collection, the processing, conservation, among others. And what is very, very interesting in this study is the impacts. So as we listened before, related to the social, environmental, and economical, there is a huge impact of the implementation of these food hubs. So related to the economical, there are improvement of local economies. They aim to improve the incomes of the farmers, of the producers. And also they work very close to understand the cost. So that can be a very interesting output of this presentation. Related to environmental, they aim to reduce the environmental cost, encouraging of cleaner practices. From the basin point, we talk about local and organic products. So they encourage really the cleaner practices. At the social level, there are an employment generation, there is the availability of fresh and healthy local food products, especially for the students, which are the core customer of this research. So related to the demand estimation, I will present you the two states, the two cities that we considered, Lyon and Saint-Étienne. So Lyon is located in the central east of France. It's a city that we consider 170 middle school canteens that represent over 25,000 meals per day. They work with a central kitchen where is the place where the food is cooked and processed, and they work 140 days per year. We also consider in Saint-Étienne, which is a smaller city than Lyon, and we map 44 school canteens that represents over 3,000 meals per day. They work also with a central kitchen located in the city, and they work the same 140 days per year. So related to the demand estimation, we propose a very simple model to understand the daily number of meals per day at the school that belongs to a central kitchen. This multiplied by a grams, which is the average composition per meal, that is by law. So there is not the quantity of food required by the central kitchen is very centralized by each of the local municipalities. And we took into consideration an alpha loss coefficient that could be in the process of cooking or in the process of transportation. For this, as I mentioned, we talk only about vegetables and fruits. So we will talk here about fresh, which are those products. And this is multiplied by a rate, K, which is established in the national legislation of school canteens, and this is adjusted every year by local authorities. For this study, we have for Saint-Étienne, 503 kilos per day, and for Lyon, we have 3,025 kilos per day. So once we have the demand estimation, we'll talk about supply estimation. So the first is definition of the product. Here we talk about organic vegetables and fruits. We map in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region which are those available suppliers. We found, here you can see in the map, the green points, 153 producers of organic vegetables and fruits. And they work with a minimal and maximal capacity, about 21 kilos per day per producer as minimal, and 42 as a maximal capacity kilos per day. The type of distribution, usually there's three kinds of distribution system. The first is a direct distribution, which means that the producer sent directly to the school canteen the products. The second one is two-echelon distribution system, where the producer passes through a consolidation center or a cross-docking point. Here we will talk a food hub. And the third type of distribution system is the three-echelon distribution system, which I put here the image, which is the producer passing through a food hub. The food hub is the food are processing in the central kitchen and finally distributed to the school canteen. Nowadays they work with two different capacities vehicles. So from the producers on food hub, they use 3.5 tons vehicles. From food hubs to central kitchen, they use 14 tons. And for the last mile distribution, they work with 3.5 tons vehicles. It can be explained one for the type of roads, for example, the type of amount of food that is distributed. So this is why these kind of decisions related to the capacity of vehicle. For the scenario construction as the second step, we will see here decisions related to facility location. As the first one is the empirical location, where currently they are located. You can see here the points of those food hubs. And we will talk about computational location when we integrate analysis of clustering. So you use affinity propagation clustering related to which of those producers can be represented to a neighbor pair of producers. And K-means, which are using less but new location of food hubs, which is very important to take in mind. So for the facility allocation, so to analyze which producers can be allocated to one food hub, for example, it is necessary to understand how it works today. As I mentioned before, today they work related to administrative subdivision, which means that all of those producers that are located in the same department are allocated to the food hub, which is located in the same department. So we talk about not a priority about geographical proximity, but an administrative subdivision allocation. Then we propose a second step related to using the same number of food hubs, which is the geographical proximity. This means that can be located in different departments, but can be allocated to this food hub. And for computational allocation, we will use the 12 food hubs that we found related to affinity propagation and analysis related to K-means clustering using 3 new food hubs or 3 new platforms to to understand how could be better fit the distribution of the food from the producers to the school canteens. So here I show you some of those. So here you can see 3 types of clustering, 3 food hubs, the metric of silhouette score evaluation to analyze how many could fit better. In K-means we set as a first step 3, but in affinity we found which one was better. Here you can see the different kind of clusters. The best option were 12. So regarding the very high availabilities were tested to obtain the highest silhouette score, and considering also the damping factor versus the results of silhouette score that can be implemented. This we implemented using Pandas and Python, the library, the scikit-learn for the clusters, just to take in mind the technical components. And in order to propose a coherent set of routes for the routes construction, we use a VRP, an open VRP spreadsheet solver developed by Professor Erdogan of the University of Bath. So we consider here the product demand, the product supply, so all the data available related to the location, the vehicle data, the schedule constraints. On the other hand, we have the distribution schemes, which are those who are implemented, and we make some of requirements that must be accomplished, such as the set of vehicles serves a set of delivery points, the demand of each customer must per visit must be satisfied, each vehicle leaves and returns to the depot, the vehicle capacity should not be exceeded, and the working time constraints for the driver and vehicle on each route should not be violated. So this is, the aim is not to propose a strong optimization, but to propose a solution close to the reality, close to that can be done using commercial solvers to actually reproduce realistic situations. So for the road construction, we will take 5 cases. The first one as the initial point. The second using geographical proximity allocation. The third using a maximal capacity of producers. So the first 2 use the same number of food hubs, but the minimal capacity. The third will use the maximal capacity using a model of minimization of transportation cost. The fourth will explain the aim of understanding what happens if we use more food hubs. And the 5 is what happens if we use less food hubs in new locations. So this is through computational allocation using clustering analysis. We set a vehicle capacity for 900 kilos for light, 7,000 kilos for heavy, and the service times are based on the French service in good of transportation goods in France. So let's see what happened in terms of efficiency assessment and impact assessment. So the result shows that using the same number of food hubs, so we have here the base situation, but just in the second step, the second case, just changing allocation decisions may lead around 8% of reduction related to vehicle kilometers travel distance and working times. When we use a larger capacity, when we increase the capacity of producers, this transportation can be reduced and to reach over 40% of the distance and time, which is very, very interesting. And when we talk about using less food hubs, we have around 12% of distance reduction. And when we use, as a case for more food hubs, so that will be an augmentation of distance and time, but it was a necessary scenario to analyze if could be fit or not for this solution. Related the economical impact, so we have a total cost of a scenario that can be calculated in function of distance traveled, working time, here T, and the quantity of freight. So we will consider a fixed cost, a set of fixed costs not related to vehicle use, and a set of unitary costs related to distance, time, and amount of freight. So here you can see some of those indicators: leasing vehicles, driver costs, insurance, taxes, diesel, vehicle consumptions, tire for each vehicle, maintenance, among others. And here some of the costs related to the facility. Here is interesting to know that it's different if we talk about food hubs or if we talk about central kitchens. And we consider leasing facility, human research, equipment leasing, among others. For the environmental performance of the system, we use only the exhaustive direct emissions from the use of vehicles that must be considered. We also use COPERT, which is a computer program to calculate emissions from road transportation. And we just use these indicators that are evaluated for the transportation sector. So we focus on CO2, fuel consumption, NOx, volatile organic compounds, VOC, that contribute to the photochemical oxidants emissions, and of course, PM, which is very interesting, particulate matter emissions. And the database that we use is from 2017, and two technologies were considered. For light vehicles were Euro 4, and for heavy-duty vehicles were Euro 5. So here you can see the base scenario, some reduction when we use geographical proximity, cost reduction, more important when we use less food hubs, but one of the most important is what happens if we use wheat producers that compromise a larger capacity of delivery. This we will discuss later. And here are some of the yearly environmental evaluation for transportation from producer to the school canteen, when we see that is directly related from less distance traveled, so less impacts. So as a conclusion, here, what are those potential logistic requirements? We can conclude that that depends of the actor, that depends of the type of products. Different when we talk about environmental and local distribution. When we talk the perceived logistic requirements, so we will talk about food traceability, flexible production, strong delivery schedule, respect of the cold chain, strong delivery, logistic cost reduction. So a lot of different perceived logistic requirements that must be accomplished. From the other instruments that we had, so we there is an important part for the selection of local suppliers when we talk about purchasing practices. The cooperation with supplier specification, we talk here about the producer, the importance to work very close with the producer. The distribution, when we talk about optimization of kilometers traveled. So as we made the exercise to understand what happened using clustering analysis and what happened if we change the location or the allocation decisions. And of course, the logistic pooling. Related, there is three main requirements. So distribution circuit design, so the facility location that could be near to the market or near to the supplier choices related to the product characteristics, the proximity location or relationship considering the supplier location, and the distribution optimization considering the use of platforms such as food hubs for the transportation strategies development. And for the framework, we have a significant improvement, just changing some decisions. This framework can be applied to the different realities. Is the heterogeneous method, but the characterization, the evaluation are the same. And the most important is to analyze the practical implication for local actors. So first of all, they will be familiarized with the local and organic offer. They will know the potential of the product demand. And also it will be very useful to assess different scenarios to have an idea which logistic scheme could be developed in the future. As we listened in the introduction, there is some ideas, some implementation for the future at the level of local actors that must be assessed before taking in practice. And finally, to take into account the possible economic and environmental impacts generated by a public policy, which is the focus of this event today, to understand the inclusion of the local and organic products in the public policy in France. So I would like to end my presentation with this image. This has been taken from the European Logistics and Freight Leaders Forum, which illustrate for me how logistics is changing every day, every second, and even more so today with the COVID. In fact, one of the sectors that has been most impacted is the school catering. It's a matter of fact that the schools are closed. So what happened with the farmers when the schools are closed? However, having these solutions such as the food hubs that bring the producers closer to the final consumer in France has served to help the producers to sell the products directly from the farm to the plate to the final customers. Thank you.
Ms. Laura, congratulations for awesome presentation. Very, very, very good. And now calling Dr. João Maiellaro, Dr. João Reis.
Nice.
João Reis, por favor.
Okay. So,
okay.
Now go for the second part of this panel. So first of all, I would like to say congratulations to both of you for amazing presentation, João, Laura. For me, I'd like to say something to you today, because maybe it's the chance I have. I'm very happy to have you here, both of you, because you're conducting similar researches in different parts of the world at the same time. And I have a chance to see part of working for João here, and in the US, in the conference US, I have a chance to see part of work of Laura. And so for me, it's an honor in this event. You have the first panel in English and the first panel, and I have both of you explain this important issue that short food supply chains, school feeding. So children is the future for me. We have kids, you know how important it is, and how important is your work. And the second part I would like to mention right now is that you show for our students right now that most of them just want to escape for operational research, for simulation, for those ideas. João is professor in this kind of subjects. Me also. You love this kind of mathematics, and you show how the production engineer, the industrial engineer can contribute in different areas using this knowledge. Because everyone has an opinion about everything. Says, I do that, do that way, or etc. You show that it's possible to effect using data in really hard work, because I know that you work harder to present this result. It's not something that 1 year, it's more than that. Many nights, many days work on that, many things you need to face it, show that it's possible, because in my opinion, you believe that it's possible to do it, and you believe in that research what you're doing. And this is a fact that's very important for this panel right now, because it's not a theory someone think about. No, it's pure science. And research like this show to me that why I choose science, why I believe in science, why science is so awesome, let's say, because it's fantastic when you can apply this knowledge. And sometimes in the industrial engineer and the production engineer and logistics, it's difficult to convince people that it's not only inside a factor, but you make difference in different areas. In school feeding, or maybe in agriculture, in many areas, you can do that. It's important to see in a different perspective. And at the same time, you see how important is logistics. We are in a conference in logistics right now, and how important it is. We're not saying, oh, you need to improve support because it's important to say you need to have this right to say this thing, and to have the right to say you need to research, you need to see data, you need to apply, you need to test it, you need to verify. And both of you have this right to speak about logistics. We stood a lot about school feeding, so for me and João, I have revealed both of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really happy, really happy. So I would like to start this debate with a hot topic on that. I promise I don't inside of calculations right now, but I'd like to both of you put your thoughts about short food supply chains. Because in Brazil, in many other countries, maybe in Colombia, that produce coffee, etc., we are always thinking to produce globally because you are the producing food for everyone. But your thoughts today shows that short food supply chains can change the world. So you need to produce locally because you can improve life of people that. So my first of debate, I would like both of you mention some part about the importance of short food supply chains. Do you believe that this is the future or not, or something that people just thinking now about the locally because it's some kind of trend or not? What's your thoughts on that for the audience, please? Laura would like to start, or João, I don't know.
Okay.
Laura, please.
Ladies first.
Very convenient. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I think it's a trend that in France, speaking about short supply chains since 2002, around, they started with this public policy about shortening supply chains, shortening the process of transportation, but also including all the producers. So we talk that it's a trend nowadays, but the work is 18 years ago, they start to talk about this. So it is a trend, but it be very important to analyze for the future research is that even is a public policy matter of fact, it is very important to understand that the evaluation of the assessment of those public policy before to take in practice is better than just say, for example, in France, 90% of products organic and locally at the school canteens must be without taking in consideration all the impacts. So first, take always the social, environmental. Here we didn't talk about mobility, for instance, impacts, but all of those, the social impacts, I just present the economical and the environmental impacts. We didn't take in consideration social, but it's very, very interesting to talk nowadays about the security, the food security, and also integrate local producers to this analysis. So it's a trend, yes, but it has been a trend since 2002, at least in France.
Perfect.
Okay. It's really very, very important to look to the short food supply chains, especially here in Brazil. But João, you see, I can't resist pointing out that I realized during our research that almost, I can say, no one listens to the family farmers here. So there are 5 million family farmers here in Brazil. They are the most important suppliers of food for us. Nobody eats soybeans. Nobody eats corn. We eat fruits, we eat vegetables, and I think it's very smart to integrate family farming with school meals. We can have nutritional gains. We can grow the local economies. We can keep children in schools. I think it could be a stronger politician. I think it's a big deal for politicians. I can understand because the attention is so low, But PNAE is a great program. I can't deny it. But the money paid is too low. It's necessary to support farmers with documentation, with qualification, with the roads maintenance, for example. Most roads are unpaved, so a lot of things to think about. But I think science is here to contribute, to think about this, to improve these systems, to clear this view.
Really nice. Right now, I'm writing a book discussing this difference between small and short food supply chains, and sometimes it is really difficult to put this role of farmer agriculture, the organic in the discussion, because they don't have the same infrastructure. We complain about infrastructure for export soybean, but you have many companies working in that, they're trained doing that, that ports prepared to that. But when you try to think about the locally, they don't have the right car to make the transportation. So they depend on everything. They don't know how to commercialize sometimes. They don't know that. So it's interesting. So one other question would like to put in the discussion before to see if the audience have some ideas. Nowadays, another discussion is about the organic or not organic. But in Brazil, in other places, people remains to go to the supermarket, to go looking for the food by the eyes. Now you see the tomato is so beautiful tomato, but sometimes it's not organic. It's not so beautiful. The same of tomato produced with some deficits like that. As I see in your presentations, there may be a difference right here. I don't know, maybe in France, people are more thinking about the beautiness, but the organic. I don't know if Laura could say something about that. And João, in Brazil, you prefer to go to supermarket to find the lettuce, the green lettuce, the beautiful green lettuce, instead the small one, but organic. I don't know. Could you mention the difference? Laura, could you explain a little bit more about the organic market even for schools there? And João, we could say something about agriculture here. Let's invert now. João first,
okay.
And Laura after, please.
Okay.
Well, in Mogi, João, we can say no organics. I don't know if I'm wrong, but no organics items at the school feeding. No, I don't remember. Just old-fashioned production. And the fight is to reduce the time between the harvesting and the plate. That's the fight. Very freshness. To keep the freshness. That's the biggest challenge here in Mogi, at least in our research. Okay, no organics, no organics here.
And French, Laura?
Well, organics is the central point of the discussion in France. There is several initiatives. One's local is a must, but organic can be 50 to 70% of the products on the menu. Some localities are interested in that because I think it's an impact on both sides. So gain related to the environmental impacts on the production and harvest and so others, and also for the quality of feeding of the students. So they are very interested in that. There is a lot of initiative from the local government to change the producers with no organic becoming to the organic producers. And there is a lot of economical incentives. There is a lot of reduction in taxes, for instance. And that helps to the system. So organic is not a must, but it's a plus when they have the school canteens menu analysis for the healthy of the students. So we focus our research in all the producers, organic, local, industry.
Fantastic. Yes, Francis, very
And
amazing.
also, as you mentioned, I'm sorry, I just the second part of the question, you said that maybe they are interested or they focus on the beauty of the product. In fact, organic products not always are beauty. Contrary, is a positive. And it's very interesting. I performed this analysis also in Sweden, in the University of Chalmers in Gothenburg. And it's very interesting because in Sweden, they integrate a class in the schools that help to the students to love the organic products, to love that there is not about beauty, there is only think about where they are coming from. So when there is an initiative that they say, for instance, this apple traveled 20 kilometers to arrive to the school canteen, for instance. So it's very interesting to work this kind of sensibilization process with the students, that they in the future will be maybe political important people that take these decisions. So from the students to have that kind of conscience is very nice. So not only the logistical implication, but also the environmental impacts in both sides.
Yes. Thank you so much. This idea, all those things running, moving around education. You need to prepare prepare the populations to see that. In Brazil, just a case happened a couple months ago. A producer says, okay, he has organic for his family, but says, if I offer in the market this kind of lettuce or something like that, says no, because that's some kind of the leaf is not so beautiful because that's not a problem. And so it's the kind of culture, but he knows the importance to that. But he says, if I produce that to offer in the market here, I don't have someone buying that. So, but education is the point. I believe that you mentioned an interesting point. Mike, I don't know if the time is over. Oh, sorry, I'm open for the audience right now. But so thank you for the presentations. Thank you to be here today, offer your Saturday today to be a first today. Thank you so much. For me, it's a really honor having shared this moment with you, and I learned a lot. I believe your students, Mike, have a good chance to not only to learn, but use part of their knowledge of the English, because we receive the English knowledge during our course here, the 6 semesters. So that's very important to learn logistics, not only in a local perspective. This is the reason why. So thank you so much, Professor Mike. Thank you, Lyra. Thank you, João. Mike, you can say the last words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, the time is over. Thanks for Laura. Thanks for João Maiellaro. Thanks for João Reis for the high-level debate on very important topic today. Ok. Agradeço a todos que estavam aqui presentes, enriquecendo esse debate, professor Milton Brito, entre muitos outros, Simone Silotti, nossa aluna do agronegócio, Oswaldo Contador Buga, entre muitos outros conosco aqui. Agradeço a todos e espero que tenham gostado bastante do debate. Estamos recebendo bastante elogios aqui pelo nosso canal de comunicação. Fernanda Silva Prado adorou aqui o debate também, nossa aluna do primeiro semestre de logística, entre outros. E vamos para a próxima palestra. Antes de mais nada, antes de irmos para a próxima palestra, gostaria de deixar bem claro que o certificado está disponível em www.fatecloc.com.br/inscrição. Então, por favor, quem assistiu a esta palestra, quem assistiu a este enriquecedor painel de debates, entrem, por gentileza, nos próximos minutos dentro do fateclog.com.br/inscrição para pegar o seu certificado. E agora eu vou apresentar aqui a próxima palestra, que será sobre Peço para não saírem, João Maiellaro, João Reis, Laura ainda não saiam, por favor, vamos tirar aqui um print, né, de todos. E próxima palestra com o professor mestre Edson Dias, o desafio da logística do transporte superdimensionado no agronegócio, que irá começar em mais ou menos 5 minutinhos, tá bom? Agradeço a todos, tenham um ótimo dia, muito obrigado, e daqui a pouquinho a gente volta com a próxima palestra. Antes, vamos colocar todos aqui e bye! Tchau a todos, bye. Tchau, tchau.
Vamos sair, né?